Welcome to Tech Blueprint, a window that lets you know the latest technology news in the world. In 2025, when the world was still amazed by the AI competition between China and the United States, an embarrassing truth surfaced: India's industrialization has completely become an international joke. This South Asian giant, which once claimed to replace China, can't even build Foxconn's factory properly. China stopped sending key equipment and skilled workers, and the United States locked the market door with tariffs. The Modi government took the trump card of demographic dividend, but it turned it into a third-rate script. The dream of India's industrialization was extinguished by its own hands. When Modi came to power in 2014, India's manufacturing industry accounted for only 15% of GDP. He ambitiously proposed the Make in India plan, claiming to take advantage of the transfer of China's industrial chain to replicate the miracle of the world factory. But 10 years later, India's manufacturing industry has fallen to 13%, and even Vietnam has achieved a 19% growth rate relying on the Chinese supply chain. What's even more ironic is that while India is shouting desindustrialization, it is frantically importing Chinese machine tools, molds and electronic components. The Sino-Indian trade deficit will exceed $120 billion in 2023, 4 times more than when Modi took office. Foxconn's experience has become a microcosm of India's industrial collapse. In 2022, Foxconn announced an investment of $19.5 billion in India to build an iPhone factory. Modi personally cut the ribbon and said, "This is a milestone for India." But 2 years later, the factory couldn't even make screws properly. China banned the export of high-end CNC machine tools and recalled 1,200 technical workers. The yield rate of Indian local workers after half a year of training was still less than 30%. In the end, Foxconn had to transfer the iPhone 15 Pro order back to the Zhengzhou factory, leaving an unfinished workshop in the suburbs of Mumbai. In the words of Indian netizens, "We can't even make a good mobile phone case, so what's the point of replacing China?" The technological Iron Curtain between China and the United States has completely cut off India's retreat. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Commerce included 14 types of advanced manufacturing equipment in the embargo list for China. These equipment are the lifeblood of chips, new energy, and precision instruments. China took a counterattack and issued the catalogue of technologies prohibited from export in China, which included 59 key technologies such as photovoltaic silicon wafers, lithium battery processors, and industrial software under control. India has discovered that without Chinese equipment and technicians, even assembling toys has to depend on others. Even more ruthless is the U.S. tariff. The Biden administration imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles. India wanted to export, but was accidentally injured by the United States, and the tariff on electric vehicle parts rose to 25%. Modi's two-end plan was directly smashed by China and the United States. India's stupidity is far more than that. In 2019, the Modi government followed the US in sanctioning Chinese apps, banning more than 300 apps including TikTok and WeChat. In 2020, it imposed a 40% tariff on Chinese photovoltaic modules, causing the cost of local solar projects to soar by 50%. In 2023, the Indian Ministry of Electronics announced 100% local manufacturing of mobile phones, but when it was disassembled, the CPU came from China's Unisoc, the camera module was from Sunny Optical, and even the screws were from Iwu. Zhejiang. The Times of India mocked itself. Our localization is to put Chinese parts into Indian boxes. The game between China and the United States has completely split the global industrial chain. China has built a moat with independent control. Huawei Kirin chips have broken through the 7 nm process. BYD electric vehicles have swept Southeast Asia. And DJI drones have occupied 70% of the global market. The United States is defending the high-end fortress. NVIDIA relies on AI chips to harvest the world, and Boeing uses airworthiness certificates to block C919 from going overseas. And what about India? Unable to get Chinese equipment and unable to afford American technology, even Vietnam can use the Chinese supply chain to make Samsung phones. But India can't even get a screwdriver factory. The most heartbreaking comparison comes from the data. Worker efficiency, the per capita output value of Chinese factories is 6 times that of India. Infrastructure costs, India's logistics costs account for 14% of GDP, while China's is only 4.5%. Power supply, India has an average power outage of 8 hours a day, while China's industrial areas have a power outage of less than 1 hour a year. Modi's Make in India has become a classic failure case of international business schools. Stanford professor Arvind Subramanian bluntly said, India missed the only window of opportunity. 2014 to 2023 should have been the golden decade to undertake China's industrial chain, but they wasted time on tariff wars and geopolitical shows. Now, even American think tanks have begun to persuade them to quit. Foreign Policy magazine issued an article warning, "Don't fantasize about India replacing China, it can't even compare with Vietnam." And Vietnam's secret is simple: embrace the Chinese supply chain. In 2023, the trade volume between China and Vietnam exceeded $230 billion, and Chinese machine tools accounted for more than 60% of the Vietnamese factories. And even the industrial parks were built by Chinese companies. While India was still boycotting Made in China, Vietnam had already earned trillions of orders that should have belonged to India by using Chinese technology plus Vietnamese assembly.